Hello and welcome to Animal Watch, and today we are talking about whether DNA tests are really that accurate. Well, several episodes ago I did some DNA reveals on some of my dogs. I did one on my Czechoslovakian wolf dog Kumi, and you can click on the information box at the top of the screen if you would like to watch that reveal. I did another one on my Romanian stray Zora, which was really interesting because I was comparing two DNA companies together. You can click on that information box at the top of the screen if you'd like to watch that now. And the third one, which I thought was really interesting, was on my beautiful Tamaskan here, Kyoshi, who I absolutely love, but who comes from a fairly controversial line. And I did know that going back several generations, she did have Czechoslovakian wolf dog on one side, and the other side of the family, there was speculation to whether there might be some wolf dog content there as well. So I did the test, and well, this is how it went. Kyoshi, right, come on baby. And I'm gonna swab the inside of her bottom cheek, which I'm doing now, and you can see she's actually pretty relaxed. I'm going to make sure I've got loads, because they said in it that you have to absolutely soak the tissue. So the results came back, and I was a little bit confused by the results. Well, this has been a huge shock, because this has come back completely different to anything that I ever expected. She doesn't have wolf content at all, do you? If she does, it's so diluted, it's not there anymore. She is 46.1% Siberian Husky. She's 34.4% German Shepherd, and then 14.4% Alaskan Malamute. She's 5.1% Samoyed. Now you can understand why I was confused, because I thought it would be really obvious that some wolf content would come up on her DNA results, but it actually didn't. So I looked around and I actually found out that some of Kyoshi's very, very close relatives had also undergone the same DNA test from Embark, which is really interesting because Embark is the only company that actually stocks European wolf DNA, which is what you need if you want to trace Czechoslovakian wolf dogs, because of course Czechoslovakian wolf dogs are made up of the European wolf and not the North American grey wolf. Okay, so I've got the results here, and the first dog that I had a look at was Kyoshi's almost complete sibling. And when I say almost sibling, her mother and her mother's sister both had two different litters of babies by the same father. So the lineage would be identical, even though both of them were sisters. It should be the very, very, very similar. And these were the results. So Kyoshi's brother Sprout came back at 5.8% grey wolf content. Right, so the second results I've got is for Kyoshi's true brother. Now, he's a gorgeous, gorgeous Tamaskan called Ulrich, and as you can see by the picture, boy, doesn't he look like Kyoshi. Same mother, same father, born a different year, but same lineage. So you would expect him and Kyoshi to be pretty similar, wouldn't you? So these were his results. Now, as you can see, he's coming up at 2.6% grey wolf, but he does have other things in his ancestry which is very, very similar to Kyoshi. Kyoshi, haven't you? You've got Samoyed, you've got Alaskan Malamute, you've got German Shepherd, and you've got Siberian Husky. So all of that is showing up. So that's pretty accurate, apart from the fact that the wolf content is missing again with Kyoshi. Now this one we have is her uncle Anneka, and he's gorgeous. Of course, he's the brother to Kyoshi's mum, and Kyoshi's mum is pretty special as well. And these are his results, and they came back at 7.3% grey wolf. Now we've spoken about three male siblings from the Alba line, but we haven't really spoken about any female relatives, just so we can get a little bit of balance into the equation, just in case it's something to do with testing down the sex chromosomes. So what we've got here is Kiyoshi's aunt called Mishka, and she is the sister to Kiyoshi's mother. She looks a little bit different, she looks a little bit more husky, but nevertheless she's exactly the same lineage, and she's come back at 6.7% grey wolf. So as you can see, even the females are showing up the grey wolf. So why on earth is Kiyoshi not showing it up? Are the tests inaccurate, or is there something else happening here? Well, first of all, I've got a very good friend of mine, wildlife presenter and biologist Niall McCann, who thought he'd have a little crack at one of the reasons that might be affecting Kiyoshi's results. This is what he had to say.
Hi there. So, Anneka asked me to explain why two sibling dogs, a brother and a sister, came up with different genetic results, with the boy dog coming out as 2.6% wolf, and his sister, the girl dog, coming out as 0% wolf. Now this doesn't seem to make any sense, but the answer is actually quite simple. So the reason that they seem to have different ancestry, despite the fact that they're siblings, is because the company doing the DNA tests only uses a limited number of genetic markers to determine ancestry. Now if they looked at every single bit of each dog's genome, they would determine that the siblings are, almost definitely, exactly the same percentage wolf as each other. But that would cost far too much money, so they look at a select number of markers instead, hence the error. Now that part's actually relatively simple, but to explain why the male dog came out as part wolf and the female dog as only dog is a little bit more complicated. Now we know that the wolf ancestor of these two dogs was a male. And the important thing about that is that sex chromosomes aren't inherited in the same way as other chromosomes. So in mammals, most mammals, including wolves and dogs, sons inherit an X chromosome from their mother and a Y chromosome from their father, whereas daughters inherit an X chromosome from each. Now, after a few generations of breeding those offspring with only dogs, and you've gone multiple generations down, you would expect there to be very, very little of the original wolf ancestor's DNA left in any of his descendants. But if you were to go looking for wolf DNA, the Y chromosome would be a very good place to start. And of course, only our male dog has a Y chromosome. His sister doesn't. So, if some of the genetic markers used by the ancestry company are located on the sex chromosomes, then it stands to reason that there is a better chance of finding wolf DNA in the male dog than in his sister, if their distant ancestor was himself a male. Now, I'm speculating a little bit, but I'm pretty sure I'm in the right ballpark.
So as you can see, Niall makes a very, very interesting point. We pay a certain amount of money to get one of these tests. It's actually not that much. It's between £80 to about £150. For that, we get a particular type of service. Now, we know that DNA tests can go much more thorough than that. Now, with a dog test, they look at a specific set amount of markers. With a really, really detailed DNA test, they'd be looking at practically every single marker. So what you're getting from the dog companies is you're getting accurate results, but they're not looking at every single tiny marker. So that's an interesting point that Niall has brought up. So the second really interesting point that Niall brought up was testing dog DNA on the sex chromosomes. And of course, he suggested if the dog DNA company was doing that, that might be the reason why Kiyoshi is not showing up the wolf DNA, if the wolf was perhaps on the male side of the family and not the female. But we know that's not true because we have evidence that there are Czechoslovakian wolf dogs in her history that were female as well. And also Kiyoshi's aunt is showing wolf content. So what's going on here? One point which Niall did not talk about is the obvious thing, that when we inherit characteristics, we don't inherit the same characteristics from our parents and our grandparents. Have you ever looked at sometimes your siblings and wondered why perhaps your sibling has dark hair, you might have blonde hair, or you might have red hair, you might have freckles, your sibling might have tan skin, different coloured eyes, different heights, lots and lots of different traits. So really, when we are inheriting our DNA from our parents and our parents' parents, we're sort of dipping in a bag and picking out a random sort of marble or something like that, you could call it. And we are just sort of not really knowing what we're going to get. And the same is a little bit with what perhaps is happening here with Kyoshi. Perhaps she didn't get the wolf DNA. Perhaps that wasn't actually passed down to her, and somewhere along the line that completely disappeared, which of course would make a lot of sense because she's not a nervous dog at all. She doesn't show any spooky characteristics at all, and to be quite honest, she has a personality to me that is much more like a sled dog or a run-of-the-mill dog. So as you can see, Kyoshi probably just didn't inherit any wolf DNA from her relatives, which I think is really interesting. She did get the other ones though. She got the Samoyed and the Husky and the German Shepherd and the Malamute, but somewhere along the line she just didn't get any wolf DNA. Another really important thing to look at with dog DNA companies, and I'm not talking about Embark, I'm talking about all sorts of dog DNA companies. They can only read the markers and the DNA that they actually have on their database. So if they don't actually possess that particular dog breed, it's not going to show up. Now, one example is obviously Zora, my Romanian stray. She showed up all these multiple different dog breeds, and I was thinking that's quite strange that they've given me sort of a selection of about 5 to 6. And one very nice Romanian guy did actually contact me on YouTube and tell me that those dog breeds that they were picking up were all mixed into a breed that's called the Transylvanian Hound. So of course, if that DNA dog company does not stock Transylvanian Hound DNA on their database, they're not going to be able to read it. And the same goes with, say you're not using Embark, you're using another company, it's not going to show European wolf DNA up at all. So Kyoshi's siblings are coming up at around 2.6% wolf content, and Kyoshi isn't showing any at all. Now 2.6% wolf content really is pretty much getting onto the lowest amount of wolf content that you can get. So more than likely, Kyoshi, you just didn't inherit any because you're such a low content dog now that it's just not being passed down anymore. So she really is just a run-of-the-mill dog. Now this brings me to the Tamaskan breed in general. As we know, the Tamaskan breed has now gone all over the world. There are dogs everywhere. They're all over America, they're all over Canada, they're over Europe. They are a beautiful breed. I've said before on many of my other films that Kyoshi is my baby. She is one of the most beautiful dogs that I have ever had the pleasure to be a mother to. So this brings me to a very important point about whether Tamaskans do actually have wolf content. Well, it's been so long now since the foundation dogs have been bred from that it's a good chance that most Tamaskans now are showing 0 wolf content, just like Kyoshi. It's just simply been washed out of the gene pool. So really, Tamaskans are not wolf dogs anymore. They are simply dogs that look like the wolf. And I also own a couple of Czechoslovakian wolf dogs, and their characters are completely different to the Tamaskan. They're very intensive. They are 25% European wolf, and boy does that show at times. Now, if you think the Tamaskan has some Czechoslovakian wolf relatives, you would expect perhaps they might be showing some of those traits. No, not when it comes to Kyoshi. To be quite honest, she reminds me more of a sled dog. She's got so much husky in her, and she likes to run away, and she loves to run, and she loves to feel the wind on her hair. And she is generally just a super gorgeous, fantastic dog, and she doesn't have that edge that Czechoslovakian wolf dogs have. If you do have a foundation dog, or you have a dog that's perhaps 1 generation or 2 generations off a foundation dog, there is a possibility that you do actually have wolf DNA, and a test will be simple to prove that. But the vast majority of Tamaskans now all over the world will be coming out at 0 content, so will not be wolf dogs. So to conclude, are dog DNA tests inaccurate? No, they're not inaccurate, but they can sometimes dance around the results a little bit because we've looked at factors that perhaps some databases are missing particular breeds. We also know that dogs don't inherit all of their characteristics, but that's not the dog DNA company's fault. It's simply reading the markers. So have a go, have a bit of fun and just send off for a dog DNA kit. Embark is a really good place for you to start. I'm not affiliated with them. I'm just saying they are actually a very good company if you want one that does carry a good amount of the markers of most of the breeds across the world. If you enjoyed this episode of Animal Watch, then please give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel by clicking the icon in the box below. You can see it down there. And remember to tune in every week where I will be bringing you some fantastic episodes on dogs, wolves, animal rescue and conservation. Bye for now.